Hello. So, as I was mentioning yesterday, what I want to do tonight is try and get rid of some booleans from the API, because booleans in an API make me uncomfortable, usually, because they're not very descriptive. I mean, you just end up seeing, do some action, true. Yeah, what does true mean in this context? No idea. So what I want to do is replace my true falses for the state of the toggles with an enumeration. So we're going to start off by, I think, with the toggle state class. Now here we've got these bool active parameters. These are the ones we're going to be changing. And I'm trying to think of a way that I can change the signatures of these without changing the tests straight away, or vice versa. But I'm coming up on a blank with that, unless I add some kind of casting to Boolean, which would be a bit weird. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new enum, so public enum toggle states. That's annoying, I don't like having a toggle state and a toggle states. Let's just call it state. Now, we have at least two settings for this, on, off, and potentially undefined, or unknown, unset perhaps. And which one of these should be the first item in the enum? Because that's going to be what everything defaults to. When you declare an enum, it's, if you don't assign anything to it, it's just the first value in its list. So I think unset would be a good idea, or we make the value nullable, which I think might make slightly more sense. In which case, off is our first value, which will be 0, and on is true, or 1. No, that's not the refactoring I wanted to do. Just to move into its own file, not remove the thing I've just typed. Right, so let's go through this now. Rather than changing the fields first, I'm going to change this. So what we're going to do is take in state question mark, and same here, and same here. Now I could change these methods one at a time and go through and make sure everything compiles, but that seems like a lot of effort. I'll just change them all at once. Now active isn't really the right name for that anymore. It should be state, or new state. And we might end up changing the implementation slightly as well. Maybe. So for the time being, we will just assign things directly. But I'm wondering if, instead of doing that, we might want to say if this has a value. In fact, we definitely want to check if it's got a value, because this is going to not be a dictionary of nullable states. This is going to be a dictionary of state. And if the input parameter is null, then we will just remove the key from the dictionary. So we'll do that, and do this. Right. So if we have a user, we want to do something, and that something is, let's do this first actually. Now our existing tests shouldn't break once we've made them compile. The actual test should pass. So I think we can make them pass by doing this. New state has value. The only difference, well, the difference in type is that this anonymous active can be nullable. Because we have to have a default state for this. Or do we? If you can only have the switch defaulted to on or off, there's no unset state about it, so actually this doesn't want to be nullable. By default, our switch is going to be off. I have a property called state on here somewhere. Oh well. Right, handle switching. So that one is actually non-nullable. New state. And yeah. Right, and we have isActive as a method, which we probably want to leave. So we'll do anonymous active double equals state dot. Why is it always thinking that? Oh, it's because I moved it to a class and Sharper Rider doesn't track classes very well, right? Or track refactorings very well. And that and that. Yeah, that should work. Kind of where all x equals state dot on. Right. Now we should get a fairly large amount of compile errors, as everything that relies on this is going to be broken. And while that compiles, I'm just going to open a window. Right. Yep, quite a few compile errors. Oh, we've got this lovely error back again. I figured out how to fix this the other day. We save changes, and then scrub the repository. In fact, let's kill everything off. Git clean dxf, and then we do .NET restore Crispin solution. And then try building again. There, no more weird value type and exception and not defined anywhere. Right, our view needs to change as well. New state view. So the state view is now a state. And again, we don't need these to be nullable, because either a user will be there and on or off, or they won't be there. Unable to cast. What? Yeah, that shouldn't be like that. There we go. Right. So this is now states.on. You know what? I think I'm going to rename that enum. call it states. Voila, no more clashes. This needs to be off, as do these two. Right. Right, now all these actives are now called new state. In fact, we can do all of it at once. Just do new state is states off. True is states on. Yep, and we can no longer be using should be false, so this should be yes, states dot off. On, off. Right. E.active. Ah, yes, this is our little test DTO. Active equals. Now, is there anywhere we're not setting it? No, okay. So this is on, off. Right, this one is off, this one is on. On a completely unrelated note, one of the other guys at work finally managed to track down what the random keyboard shortcut is I hit that keeps changing my keyboard language to Finnish or English, depending which one I'm using. That's not Windows key space. It's Alt-Shift. Or Control-Shift will do something similar. And switching those off in Windows 10 is not the most straightforward of tasks. I went through 10 options boxes before I could find it. But at least now I can't randomly switch my keyboard layout to finished as I'm typing and not realise. What is your problem? I delete an extra bracket somewhere. Yes. I'm just going to fix that as well. Less compiler warnings. Now, as this is still not able to run .NET Core tests, unfortunately the next early access release of Rider has been postponed till next week. So we shall just use the command line test runner instead. Now, fingers crossed, these tests should actually pass. We shouldn't have broken any logic by replacing trues and false with offs and on, but you never know. Great. So we'll add these. And just check that we've not done anything stupid or committing any bad white space. So toggles, replace Boolean state with enum state. Now, one thing we do want to expand is if we look at our toggle state class, we now have this going on. What we want is to be able to remove the setting entirely for someone. So basically, if null comes in here, we were going to expect that user to not have a record in this property anymore. And our tests don't currently cover that, so we're going to expand that and fix it. So toggle states tests, there we go. Expected states. So we can do that and make that nullable. And yeah, we'll leave that there. Right, so now that these are nullable, the activeness at least, we just need to make, or do we want to just implement it as a separate test to start with? Yeah, let's implement it as a separate test. We'll leave this one alone. So, fact, when passing null to a set user. So in the case of this, what we shall do is say var state equals new toggle state. We shall switch on this for a user. We'll just use user 1. Let's say user 3, that'll do. So what are our arguments? User ID and the new state. So we're going to set this one as on, and I think we could end up parameterizing this test in a minute. And now we shall do state.handle switching user 3 null. We're now going to expect that state for the user 3 should be, actually no, we won't do that, we'll do user state should not contain key user 3. Because this will add it, and then this should remove it. Obviously this will fail at the moment. Oh, and I think I just tried to tell it to run the tests, which won't happen. Oh, don't get my hopes up like that. It briefly appeared. Right, we shall explicitly run this test project because we're only changing implementation details, so we don't need to run the UI tests for this. Or the API tests, sorry. And it would probably help if I actually told it to run tests rather than just giving it a file path. Yep, one failed test. So, we can do this, has value equals new state dot has value. So if we have a user, if we have a value, do that. Otherwise, can we do try remove key? Does that exist? Does my IntelliType work? No. I thought there was a try remove. Oh well. invert it and yeah, that now that's nicer. I prefer that. Right, that should make our test pass. Hooray. So let's do the same for groups. Or do we want to test this more? So we could do theory inline, user 3. Can I do that? Is that a valid thing to do? No, I thought not. Oh, well, we don't actually need to pass a user ID in because we're keeping that consistent. So we say states on, this is our initial state. Null, this is our changing of state. And we'll do true. So this is states initial state. Then we have states question mark new state, and we'll should contain. So here we'll say if should contain, do that, else the reason rather than doing this, rather than doing user state dot contains key should be true or false, is that we'll get a slightly better error message out of this. If we just did this instead, user 3 should be, we'd get an error message that would say something along the lines of expected true to be should contain, and that's not very helpful. Whereas if we do this, we get expected should state to contain key user 3. Or if this one runs, we get user state should not have contained key user 3. So it gives us a bit more, a better debug output. So we'll put new state in there and initial state here. And now let's do some more. This should actually be false. So no matter what the starting state is, changing it to null should remove the state. We might as well just test everything now. So setting it on initially, and then doing states.on, states.on, so these should both be true. And then we have these tests again, but this time off. And these should be false. Initial state can either be on or off. Then we've got 3 separate states, so that's 6 possible states. Yep. Right, let's run the tests again. With luck, these will all pass. And then we just need to expand this to cover groups as well. And although it's an identical test, but with a group ID instead. Yeah, I think I'll write it as a separate test. Oh, we got some failures. Should not contain key, user 3 bitters. Oh. Should always contain the key. Yeah, that's right. It should always contain those, no matter what the states are. I suppose we should also check what is active. Use the 3. Can we do that? Maybe. Let's do this. Var membership equals substitute for membership. Group membership. Membership dot get groups for arg.any user ID returns enumerable empty. I can't remember if n substitute does that by default or if it makes it return null instead. So better safe than sorry. Membership user 3 should be, and again, yeah, we can do that. Should be expected active. So here we should do bool expected active, and here it should be false and false. This should be true. This should be true. This should be false. This should be false. Because these are the only two that are actually going to switch anything on. Those will explicitly switch it off, and these two will remove the value, which is equivalent to being off. That's better. Do I want to do anything else? I don't like having two separate assertions down like this, but it's the easiest way to cover all of our states, so we'll live with it. Toggle state support removal of user state setting. And now we just do the same with groups, which is unfortunately quite a copy and paste. Although we could abstract that, because the logic is identical. I'm passing state to a group. I should probably rename this as well. It's not what the test does anymore. Right, so here all we have to do is replace user with group. We'll use group 1, group 1, group 1, group 1, group. Yeah, it's not an identical test because a group, we can do user 1 in group 1, and this rather than that is going to return user 1 in group 1. No, it's not. It's going to return group 1. Yes. And we've got some compile errors, which is good, telling us that our strong typing is protecting us from checking the wrong variables. Yeah, we should get 6 failures when we run the tests, because we haven't implemented this in the switch. We might, and it might be less than 6 failures actually. 2 failures, I reckon. Yeah, because it's only the null case we're not handling, which which is basically identical to that. We'll just do that and that. That's value, group, underscore groups. And the only thing I've just noticed is I hate that syntax. Mostly because I just don't notice the exclamation marks at a glance. And missing things at a glance is annoying when you're trying to debug something. So you might as well make things as noticeable as possible. I figure making things as noticeable as possible is why SQL has uppercase keywords for everything. They really want you to know that you're selecting. Makes SQL seem like such a shouty language. Those are awfully quick. That really run all the tests? 133 tests. Yeah, must have done. I suppose I did build it first. Right. And as before, I'm just going to cheat and use the same message of group state setting, and we don't actually need to do anything with the anonymous one because that's not nullable, so that hasn't changed other than it's gone from being a boolean to something else. Right. Let's go back to our README, which I don't have open. Atom. I do have. What is that? That wasn't in the. It is in the Alt tab window. It's just. Now we're getting 2 copies. Great. Anyway, so we've got post, which is adding things. That's the equivalent of passing state on and state off. Now we're going to have to deal with delete, and then we can completely tick off this area. So let's get rid of our second copy of Atom. My laptop already sounds like it's trying to take off without 2 copies of Atom trying to add to the problems. So we'll start off at the controller level. So we have somewhere there is set state, post state by ID. Do we have a post state by name as well? No, tut. Yep, there is definitely not one by name. Right, well there should be. Basically the same, except we have a string name instead. Except we kind of don't. Let's come back and deal with that. It's more fun to implement delete anyway. Right. So we have post state, get state, post state. And delete state. So this is HTTP delete. And delete state model, which is going to be very similar to our upstate model. How is the coding coming? Yeah, it's alright. I'm refactoring a lot of things as I realise that feature toggling is less and less of a simple domain than I think. But then again, that seems to be the same with all domain problems that you come across. Like chat applications are simple, it's just a log of chat messages, and what could be more difficult than that? Or what could be easier? Turns out, not quite that simple. So, when you remove state, you can't remove anonymousness. Oh, actually, there's a point. We haven't updated our models. Right. Undo that. Although we could actually leave those as booleans, because this is the update side of things. Am I a tab or a space person? I don't actually care, as long as they're consistent in a project. I don't mind. And yeah, modern editors doesn't make any difference. I hit tab, I get 2 or 4 spaces or a tab character. I used to ask that as my when I used to interview developers in my last company. First question, tabs or spaces, and watch them squirm. And then talk to them about it. Basically explain that it doesn't matter to me as long as they're consistent. Sometimes it was interesting to hear their reasonings behind these things. Now, do we want these to be booleans or not? Because the delete method is the one that's unsetting things. These are only explicitly setting things on or off. So in fact, we could leave these as booleans. Let's find the usages of these. Well, that's a helpfully sized window. So we create a request out of them. And then if we go to our update toggle state handler, we could toggle change state. Now this should be that state's enumeration. Yes, and this is then passing on to us. Yeah, this should be the enumeration as well. States. Yeah, and a lack of value would be useful in there as well, which means we need another kind of event, which is right, because we want to be able to remove state from things, and at the moment we can't. So yes, this is correct. Yeah, Tulladar, I think. I subscribe heavily to the theory of have strong opinions, but hold them loosely. I don't necessarily always succeed at holding them loosely, but I at least try. So if it has value is false, we'll do one thing. Otherwise, if new state value, so here we'll do apply event new toggle state removed. No, toggle unset for user. Yeah, that'll do. That wants to be has value. No, it does want to be value. Value is on. There we go. And we basically want the same for this. For group. And we don't want to change the default one because the default state can either be only on or off. The only thing that changes with this is we'll use the enumeration. And we'll just do this on. So if the state's on, do that. Otherwise, do that. Yeah, good. Right, now we need 2 new events. Let's put it in here for a second. Public class toggle unset for user event ctor a user ID is our only parameter. And we shall set a getAny property for that, and we will override toString, otherwise our event test will explode telling us we haven't. And in our case this is going to say toggle aggregate ID unset for user. And apparently we're calling that user rather than user ID. Did that just change a bunch of stuff? Okay, no it didn't. Right. I thought that renaming that, because there's a base property called user ID, I thought that renaming that property might have renamed the base property as well, and thus everything, which it shouldn't have done. Right, so now we've got that, we shall duplicate this because it's basically the same field group. How long have I been coding for? Professionally, or like when was the first time I wrote something? Because I guess professionally since I've had a job as a software developer since 2007. I've programmed a bit for maybe 5 years, 6 years before that. Let's say from about 2000. And the stuff I wrote before that first job was terrible. The stuff I wrote during that job was bad and got better. And I hope that my programming is now not bad. I strive to be better every year. That's the goal. Suck less. Can always improve. The day that you think you've hit the best and there is no more improvement to do is the day you should stop developing and go and become a dry stone waller. Or, you know, do anything else. Because there is always more to learn. Right. No more compiler errors in that, but a million compiler errors from everything else that calls our toggles now. Because they now can no longer do this. Now, our toggle state request, our date request, I think we will make these. Can we make them nullable? No. So we'll do states on that, and that, and that, and that. Yeah, or watch tutorials, watch conference videos. Doesn't have to be reading. I like reading, but, you know, not the way of learning for everyone. I didn't want to decompile that. I wanted to go to that property. There we are. And this can be nullable, because if it doesn't have a value, we're not going to do anything. Yeah. Can also improve a lot by learning other programming languages, even if you're not actually going to actively develop in them. Like, I read a design patterns in Ruby book, and that opened me to using the command pattern a lot more, even though I never, well, I wrote Ruby build scripts, but that was about it. So yeah, that opened my eyes to the command pattern, because it was so well baked into the Ruby language. Oh, god damn my typing. What is wrong with that? there a property called states in here? No. Right. Just going to assume that that's actually not a real compile error then. That's an off. That's an on. That's an off. Let's see if these are real errors or not. Right, let's find and replace these ones. New state true should be new states on. And we'll just copy and paste this time. There's only a couple of them. See, it can't navigate to states anymore for some reason. I don't know what causes that. Should probably actually report it as a bug, to be honest. In fact, there probably is already one. Let's see, rider. Move file. Yep. Move method. Moved class is not visible by the compiler. Yeah, that's it. After reloading, rider paths, adding system helps on. Renaming of files causes it to. Can't reproduce. Yeah. So this is states on, off. Right. Now this is the interesting one, because we've now got booleans which now need to become enumerations. And I think an extension method might be useful. I don't know if that's even possible to do. Let's see. Public static class extensions. Public static states as state this bool value no, states on states off. Right. So then I can just do that. One's going to be a bit weird actually, because that might not have a value. Okay, we'll deal with that one in a second. Oh, need a dot. Extension method defined on a value type cannot be used to create a delegate. What? Oh, brackets. Right, and we just need to add an overload that deals with nullable. If if value dot has value, then do that. Okay, that's horrible to read. That's becoming a method. If value has value equals false, return null. Otherwise, value no value dot value as state. And in fact, you could now put that into one line I think. Can we invert it? Yeah, can we invert the if from here? Invert if, there we go. Invert it, then convert it into one of those. Remove that. Merge conditional. There we are, that's not so bad. Love resharpen. Right, so now we have that, which should be using the nullable version. Great. And I'm going to move that to the domain as well. States. Oh, I've had an idea. That rider issue, which they can't reproduce, can actually show them this, give them the commit ID and the video, and then they can figure it out from there. Yes, I know that doesn't exist because I haven't had time to paste it yet. And we'll call this states extensions, even though they're technically Boolean extensions. They're to do with states. And as I've moved that into a different class, now this won't be able to find them anymore. Now, as these update models are Booleans, we don't need to change anything with our calling of the REST API. So let's run our tests. I think, yeah, whoops. Really don't want to have that save point committed. So we'll deal with that in a second. So this is, let's see, toggle use states enum for switching API. Right. Now what I want to do is see what's in that save point commit. So git show EC BD CE7. So that's the creation of the states enum. Now, I want to keep that commit, but I really don't like the message because it's not very useful. So I'm going to do a git rebase I, which is an interactive rebase, which I am inevitably about to screw up. So we're going to insert mode, and rather than pick this, we shall reword it. So what this is going to do is undo all of my commits, and then redo all of them, but when it hits this reword, it will come in and let me edit the commit message. Or it'll all explode horribly because I've got a really weird problem with my Vim at the moment, which I think I worked out how to fix. Yes, it'll explode horribly. And now I don't have a cursor. Right, now I think I figured out what the cause of this was. So let's find out. Now, is there a Vim file in here somewhere? There's a Vim info. I don't know what that file is, but I'm going to delete it. Yeah. Right, now let's see if that works. Oh, go away. Right, d dev projects Crispin. Git pending. So I'm just going to do git commit amend, and this will tell me if the vim has been fixed or not. No, it is definitely not fixed. I have no idea what is causing this. I mean, what is that? Actually, does it happen in other repositories? File system. Git commit amend. No. Right, so it's something in the repository. Can't type anything anymore. Right, cd Explorer. Not on that screen, on that screen. Which means I think it's something in here. And I suspect it's this config file. Maybe not. Could well be that though. No idea what that is, gonna delete it. Oh yes, and that doesn't work because I don't have a real D drive, I have a fake D drive. Rm git dot commit edit message swap, and I don't know what the other one is, so that's going as well. Right. Let's see if I've broken a Git repository. Git commit amend. Works again. Right, we'll just quit out of that. Right, now let's do that rebasing again. Git rebase I. So we'll go into insert mode. We will reword that commit. Right, so we're now able to edit this commit. And this is here. State. Add state enum implement or refactor toggle state to use. That'll do. We'll write that, and now I'll rebase the rest of my changes. You can see Atom going mental in the background. Right, and if I now do git pending, we have rewritten changes. The only downside is that my commit times have now changed. It now looks like I can code in 30 seconds. I can do all of the work that I've done in the last hour and 8 minutes. So yeah, but we now have a nice commit message rather than the word save point spattered everywhere. Oh, and if anyone is wondering what that pending is, if we do git config list pipe grep alias. There we are. Pending is this. So it's just doing a git log comparing it to the origins master branch. There's also pending up, which does something similar but compares against the remote the remote tracking branch of your current branch, and formats it nicely as well. There's also this as well, which I don't use very often, but it's quite cool. But you don't see anything useful in that because I don't have any branches being merged and committed together. If you had branches, you'd get the little graph of drawn with pipe and slash symbols. Anyway, now that we've done that, now we can actually go back and make our delete state. So this is delete state. Don't have to call the method this, but it seems like a good convention to follow. We're going to have a delete state model, We'll go here and we'll just put something in here. I don't know what I'm going to put in this yet. Public class delete state model, so I'm going to leave it blank. Let's move that to its own file. Delete that. That can be closed. Right. Now, you can't delete state for anonymous for a start. And if you do, it's just setting it to false, so there's no point in that line. And you don't have a value part to deleting state. You're just removing the setting of state for a user or a group. So that tells us that our state model, rather than being a dictionary, it should be an IEnumerable of string group get set. No, that should be public. It'd be much use if it was private. And we'll have users as well, if I could type the word. And rather than parsing them to a dictionary, we should just do two. No, we won't. We'll just do select. 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 Do that. Do that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Right. What's your problem? Oh yes, we haven't updated that yet. Right, and actually we can do this as well. And just use method grouping rather than creating a new lambda for them. Now we've got an update toggle state request. We could actually dictionary these, thinking about it, and use the same update method. Yeah, so instead of doing that, we'll do toDictionary. In fact, we'll just hold undo for a while. Like that. And here, we just do that. And here, no. Yes, this can be made to work. So in here, this can be question markable, or nullable, as it's probably meant to be called. And why doesn't that compile? You'd have thought. I suppose. Can I just do that? Yeah, that'll do. Right. And then null in here, so state question mark. No, it needs to be a lambda, that's why. Right, getting there. So, do that. Right. So now, our update toggle handler so we're passing in the value here. But as this takes a nullable, I can just do that. What? Ah. No, that was right in the first place. No need to change it. So this will now pass a null in to change state. Null comes in, has value false, toggle one separate group. Let's see if it actually compiles. It does now. Let's run all the tests. Our API test pass. Hopefully the domain test will pass because we haven't actually changed anything. But we have missed adding a test. In that we added a new method to our toggles controller, but we did not add a test for it. In fact, we don't have tests for the put either. Naughty, naughty. So let's fix that. Class update. No, we'll call it post because that's what the method's called. Post single toggle state tests. And these inherit toggle controller tests. And do we do anything special in these? We have a lot of mediators set up for this one. But we're not getting a single toggle, we're just posting to it. Okay, let's not do any setup yet. No, in fact, when setting state for a non-existing toggle, then we have fact when setting state for an existing toggle. Let's have a quick look at the method a second. So all we really want to do is check that the right kind of message gets passed through with the right values and gets hit and hits the mediator, and that the response has the right shape. So I think, yeah, we can just use one test to carry all of that out. Yeah, and there is a bug in here as well, I think. Maybe not, we'll see. So we should have a mediator already, so we can just do controller dot post state, and I believe we had a toggle ID set up already. No, we didn't. So let's do this underscore toggle ID equals toggle ID dot create new. Oops. So we pass in the generated toggle ID and a new state model. Oh yeah, it's a GUID at this point, isn't it? Because we're in the UI layer. We'll do some research later and find out if we can actually explain to Web API that it can serialize using JSON.NET parameters. We might actually just have to implement another converter for the toggle, or for the ID types. Var response. So what should our response look like? Should be, well, actually it should be 404 because the toggle doesn't exist. But we're not doing that anywhere else, we're just returning it. Or we're returning a null JSON response. So we will actually need to implement that behavior, but I want to put that kind of behavior in a decorator. So, assuming we get a null JSON response, we will act as if it's 404, I think. So in this case, it should be null. And we'll do this. And let's extract this into a variable and set some stuff up on it. So we'll set anonymous equal to true. We'll set groups equal to group 1, and our value true. For our users, we shall do user 1 and our value will be false. So this time we shall check that the mediator receives something. So mediator received send with an arg. We kind of want to check that that actually does the mapping correctly. So we'll do arg is, and it is an update state request. Is this an expression or a func? It's an expression, right. So we can't actually do that. Not the easiest way to validate all of it. Yeah, we'll just do this. Rec dot anonymous double equals true, and rec dot groups contains key. Actually, can I just do contains? No, that's just the value. I want to just check that it contains both. But that, as much as I want to use shouldly, actually we can, just with a bit of and substitute magic. Mediator dot when m dot publish send. Yes. When send arg dot any update toggle state request do call info dot arg update toggle state request, and we'll just say underscore request equals that. And now here we don't need to do any of that, we can just say request should satisfy all conditions. And now let's write some conditions. underscore request anonymous should be true. Or can I do that? Should be true. Oh, of course, we're casting it in there. That should be that. That's better. Right. Next. Request users should have single item. Wow, you can do a deconstruct with it. Ah, that'll be for the next C# deconstructors. Cool. So we've got key and value. So we want to check that the key is correct and that the value is correct. But I think I'll do this instead. Single key should be user ID parse user-1. And instead we should have value should be states 1. Now we have the same thing but for the group. So group ID, groups, and the difference is here, this one should be off. Oh, state's false, state's off, and this should be group. And can I chain a returns onto this? Not like that. Might be able to do it in here though. Func core info t. Does that do what I want? Maybe. Not sure. Yeah, I'm not convinced that's right. Actually, what's the signature of this? Is there a do that actually is a func of callback? No. I was hoping to just specify a return value on this as well. Might be able to do it. Returns new update toggle state response. No. Oh well. And in fact, we don't want to set it up on there because we want this to not return anything. So it's here we'd want to do mediator dot send new do arg any toggle state request returns new toggle state response. view equals new state view. Because this returns a state view. Because that's the other thing we want to assert, is that we get the right shape of response. So down here, not only do we want to do all this lot, but we also want to say, yeah, we'll put it in here anyway, response value. So JSON result. The value should be, actually we can do that, should be of type state view, because we want to assert that we are getting the actual state view back, not the response type itself. Right. Yeah, let's do this. Rather than that, it's actually going to return a null object on the state. Yes, because we want to check that we handle a null state property rather than a null response, because we're never going to get a null response from mediator. Now, as we only want to run some of the tests, I'll do .NET test source crispin.rest.tests. Assuming this builds actually. Got some red down here. Oh, apparently it does build. Ooh, errors. Right, what is our problems? Should be off when setting state for an existing toggle. What the toggle state request? Right, so when an existing toggle, we had an off when we expected on, and vice versa. Ah, yes. Helps if you specify things in the same order. So user should be off, group should be on. Oh. Right. Now, despite all that, I'm not sure. Should be a JSON response, but was... No, that's wrong. So JSON response result and the value should be null. Right. That's better. Right. Toggles, controller, add tests for post state. And now we just need to do the last task for this evening, which is the delete state. Delete state, no, delete single toggle state tests. Toggle controller tests. So, in fact, when deleting state for a non-existing toggle, and when deleting state for an existing toggle. You might have noticed in the last test that we weren't actually checking what the result was, we're just checking that it should be of the right type. And that's because we're only interested in testing the controller up until where it spits out a message to mediator. We have tests that test the handler, which handles that message on the mediator pipeline, but we don't want for the controller to test the whole pipeline. We'll write tests later which cover everything, but they're less unit tests and more of integration tests. So as we're doing the same thing, did I actually use that toggle ID anywhere? Yes, but I didn't assert on it. That was naughty of me. Request.toggle ID should be toggle parse toggle ID. Good. And we'll just commit that into the last commit. Right, yes. So we will borrow this setup. And this, because we're actually dealing with the same message type. And for the non-existent, we want that. And for the existent, we want that. And that should be where our differences end pretty much. So this is var response equals await controller delete state. Now we need our toggle ID and a new delete state model. And it's a JSON response or JSON result. And our response.value should be null. And now for this one. So we're going to delete state. So we're going to copy this line. And then we're going to, well, actually, we didn't end up using anything from this. So what we could do is that instead. Sharpers can't find the type anymore. So we've got an enumerable of groups and an enumerable of users. So we'll say groups equals that group 1, users equals that user 1. Now that should build, despite the fact writer is indicating otherwise, because it is just an enumerable of strings. Alright then, we'll just put the type in, like that. Right, so as in the previous test, we're going to do this. It's actually the same sets, except this should be null, and that should be null. We should get a state view back. There should be a single user, a single group called group1. There should be a single user called user1. Anonymous. Anonymous should be null. Yeah. Right, let's see if those work. Then we'll be able to tick off our delete handler as well. And then I think decorators for the decorators for returning bad requests and such, not bad request, 404 and things. Value cannot be null. Thank you. What line? Toggles controller line 85. What do you mean? That can be null. It's nullable. Two dictionary. Given a string, we ignore it and return a state question mark. Yeah. That's right. Right, let's try and figure out what this problem is. That can be null. That we're definitely passing in. Message system value can be null. Parameter name source. I love that. Which source? And then we've got these lovely async stack traces which make things lovely and not readable. Delete single toggles tests line 35. Okay, maybe that might give us a clue. It does. This is null. So if we look at our update state model, that has things initialized. Not that this should ever actually happen, I don't think, but well, no, actually it could do. So enumerable.empty users equals enumerable empty. Right. Build and rerun tests. Or just take ages building, one of the two. Right. Much better. Let's check what we've written. Not added any bad white space anywhere. But we're also going to tick off our delete method in here. And the state endpoint is now complete. Implement delete state. Cool. So that's all I wanted to do this evening. I think next time we will do a decorator to handle our null responses. So rather than returning, so if you enter a toggle ID that doesn't exist, rather than returning 200 OK and a null response, what we'll do is return a null response, and a 404 resource not found. I also think it might be a good idea to up the build script a little bit, perhaps, as I'm using the command line quite a lot because of Rider's lack of running tests. So I might update this to allow me to pass in the name of a test rather than just run everything. And what was the other thing? Ah yes, custom serializers for request parameters. So rather than having to accept GUIDs here and strings for our users and groups, we'll put a custom serializer on there so that we can just have the model directly having a group ID, user ID, and toggle ID on them instead. So I'm just going to push this up to GitHub. Right, so yeah, the source code's all up on GitHub. If you've got any questions or just want to chat about anything development related, I'm always available. So send me a message on Twitter or GitHub. It's at Ponderdom on all platforms basically. So yeah, thank you for watching and see you next time.